1,000 Ways to Die is an absolutely incredible show, but I do have to say that it is not for everybody, definitely not for everybody. The show was released between 2008 and 2012. There are 8 seasons across 133 episodes across 8 seasons. It's from Original Productions and Spike TV, and this is basically the Darwin Awards. Each episode is about 20 minutes long, and it details maybe 4 or 5 ridiculous deaths, the way that people have died. 66 episodes of these are narrated by Ron Perlman, by the way, which I think is pretty brilliant. And these are reconstructed, and it is graphic and very creative. The editing in this is some of the finest editing that I have ever seen, because it is the ultimate creation. The editing is just, I can't imagine how much fun they had with the editing for this. Watching it for the editing alone is brilliant, but you do need to not have a weak stomach. If you are squeamish, this will not be good at all, because there are blood and guts and people ripped open and, you know, splattered all over the walls, and it's brilliant fun. It's a lot of fun. But these are, generally speaking, 1,000 ways to die on a daily basis. And some of the episodes are very specific. I will give you a few examples. I don't want to spoil it all by going into too much detail, but I'll give you a few examples. But I just want to say, first of all, as well as being very creative with really fantastic creative editing, there are actually experts on the show. Well, I say on the show, they're kind of edited in little snippets of experts explaining why a person died, what caused their vertebrae to snap, what penetrated their skull, how this happened, how they died. And it's actually really little, these pockets of scientific fact against the backdrop of ludicrous footage. And also, I have to point out, insensitive narration. The names have been changed on all of these. So, you can't really associate these with anybody. But the narration is not sensitive. It is quite offensive to the individuals who have been hurt. I don't care. I'm not offended. But if I was that individual's family, I might be a little bit taken aback at how blunt they are about these deaths and how much they speak ill of the dead. That's just something to bear in mind. But the actual episodes themselves, some of them are amazing, some of them are mediocre, because it depends on the kind of deaths that you're into, if I can phrase it like that. So I'll give a few examples, but nothing too detailed. Some of them are things that are not going to happen to you, and they're the ones that are the easiest to watch, and you can look at that person and say, yeah, alright, that person was an absolute idiot. I feel much better about myself. For example, there was a girl who was going to a hemp festival. She ran over a raccoon. She got into the middle of the road, gave mouth to mouth to this clearly dead roadkill, and was hit by a car. There was a violent image of her head being ripped apart, and then we have the scientific reconstruction, kind of 3D animation of showing what would happen when the car bumper kind of locked onto the head's chin and pulled it off. And I find that really interesting, the way the science is explained, because it's really fun as well. So that's something that I'm particularly a fan of. The other thing I should say as well, before I explain another few more, is as with that example, you have to take what they say with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of kind of embellishing or creating stories. There's another one where it details specifically what a guy was doing while using his juicer, and what he'd been doing that day, and then his juicer exploded and sliced him in the face, which that kind of thing is quite terrifying, because a lot of people do use juicers on a daily basis, and that could happen to a large proportion of people. In this particular episode, the juicer was very old and used constantly, so it's not something that's likely to happen, but more likely than getting your head ripped off while giving CPR to a dead raccoon. But there are kind of some stories created around these where it's impossible for people to have known what was happening, but it just helps you build up a picture more of what was going on. So there are 2 examples. I will give you 2 more. There is one where I'll kind of give you half the story. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it involves a wrestling pit, a mud wrestling pit at a sorority house, and a kind of quicksand effect. And the thought of it is pretty terrifying, but because the person who died was painted out to be an absolute bitch, it was pretty fun to watch. You know, the kind of sorority individual that I mean. And the other one involved, I believe, Vietnamese soldiers, or former Vietnamese soldiers, who had apparently been playing Russian roulette with their guns. None of them died, jumped up and down, and their hut exploded because it was on a forgotten mine. That was really interesting because I didn't realise, or I've never really considered what needs to happen in order for an abandoned mine underground to actually explode, and that was really interesting. But again, there's no way really they could have known that they were playing Russian roulette before they jumped up and down, celebrated, and the mine exploded. It's a little bit of guesswork, unless somebody had specifically told somebody else that was going to happen. But it doesn't matter, because we still get the science behind it. That's how I learned kind of the level of pressure needed for, the mine to explode. Really interesting one about a guy who made his own cast when he broke his arm. Really fascinating. It's so varied. A lot of different kind of scenarios here. Obviously that one was Vietnamese. I'd say a lot of them are American, but not always. Very, very, very creative. Definitely one of the most creative shows that I've ever seen, without question. If you are into gory films, gory TV shows, very creative, very, very, very exceptionally creative TV shows that are potentially quite hard to watch, actually. This is absolutely the one to watch. There's one, because obviously their names have all been changed. I'm desperate to look up and see how newspapers and websites reported on these cases, but obviously there isn't really the option. It's quite hard to find these. There is one that I would love to be able to find if anybody knows about it, and it's the one about a TV shopping channel host called Chad, or Ched. Very difficult to find out based on the accent alone. I should have really put subtitles on. And basically he died on screen. And I really want to know who that was. If you do know, please let me know. This show is fantastic. I wish they would do a 2000 Ways to Die. I should point out, I haven't seen every single episode because they're not all available on Amazon Prime. But as soon as physically possible, I will be watching them all. It's utterly fantastic. It's a brilliant, brilliant TV show. Not for everybody. Absolutely, unquestionably not for everybody. But if you like this kind of thing, and you've got a strong stomach, you are going to love 1000 Ways to Die.